When did I actually get started as a DJ? I think I got interested in DJing and music and stuff like that, from around 1983. I was 13 years at the time, played lots of friends' birthday parties, made lots of mixtapes. It was towards the latter part of the 80s that I started playing a few reputable gigs, school functions, socials, that kind of stuff. We used to handle a lot of these request stalls, I remember, at these carnivals. That was a lot of fun, especially when they were at girls' schools. But for me, most of the 90s was spent outside of Sri Lanka. I was in Australia and I think till around 97. And the music, the club circuit there was quite different. It was very genre specific. So you'd have R&B clubs, you'd have house clubs, you'd have techno venues, garage venues, lots of mainstream top 40 clubs as well. And you had these big Bhangra events as well. In the 90s, that was kind of the fad, Bhangra nights. But yeah, so returning back to Sri Lanka around 97, actually had very few years of the 90s gigs here in Sri Lanka. I clearly remember my biggest challenge was trying to play various genres of music, going from upfront house to hip-hop to 70s disco, ABBA, Summer of 69, playing some baila, all in one night. But that was also the beauty of it. The club and party culture in Colombo, as in DJs used to do that. It was different for me in Australia, so it took a little while for me to adjust. I remember I was playing at this club called Cascades, and it took me a little while to get used to things. But the house party scene was just awesome in Colombo, just like it was in the 80s. Nothing much had changed, and it was great to be back and be a part of the whole scene here. So some of my favorite clubs to play back then, so when I returned 1997, I played at Cascades, my kind of place, the Colombo 2000, the library, I think. Out of all that, I think I enjoyed Cascade the most. Cascades. It was high energy, like a big house party, even though it was a club. Loads of requests. We even had this like a slow dance session. It was quite novel, and it was the thing, back then. We'd play a lot of love songs, girl and boy. They have a bit of a slow session. But tracking back to Melbourne, I remember I had this residency at a club called Chevron on St Kilda Road. It used to be a colossal uni night, like $1 pots, loads of drink cards floating around, 1,000+ uni kids going wild, girls banging on the DJ booth. It was mad. That was quite iconic for me in my DJ career. That went on for a couple of years, and also a lot of the house and garage clubs, the hugely progressive underground scene, which I was very happy to be a part of. I enjoyed playing a lot of those events. And also here in Sri Lanka, we did a lot of these New Year's Eve gigs at the Golf Face Hotel. They were quite iconic. They actually continued even right throughout the 2000s. Pretty awesome. We'd, party on till 9 a.m. the next morning. I really don't know how we got the energy to do that. So my favorite thing to do as a DJ in the 90s. Well, in the 90s, I was in my mid-20s, so I had lots of favorite things to do. Music and DJing were just a couple of them. But I think digging for music was one of the things I really enjoyed about the 90s. There were many record stores, so you'd go hunting for hours and hours in these vinyl stores, trying to find the next big anthem, looking through piles and piles of records, until you find some gem of a track. Those are pretty exciting times. I think the best part of the 90s for me was discovering music. I learned the most about DJing and music and all that in the early 90s. I was influenced by some great DJs in Melbourne, and seeing them play live, unearthing rare tracks, stuff like that. They were great times. So cassettes, vinyl, Discman, or Walkman life. Me personally, I think cassettes and then vinyl. I'd say starting out in the 80s, vinyl was totally out of reach. They were very expensive as well, so we used to play on cassettes. Get all your music on about 50, 60 audio tapes, go out there, play them, that kind of stuff. But eventually I moved on to vinyl, and that was the only medium up until CDs came along. So the bulk of my vinyl collection, I think, was from my DJ days in Australia. So and even now, hugely into vinyl. My most preferred medium is to play on vinyl, and I still get some DJ promos sent across, and go digging for vinyl whenever I get a chance. Anything I miss about the 90s nightlife? I think what I miss the most is getting dressed up. You know, I mean, not just in the 90s, but even in the 80s, we used to really dress up, going to a club or a house party, kind of like putting on your three-piece disco suit and getting down, that kind of stuff. So yeah, dressing up I really miss. Now, you know, it's all very casual, but also, you know, we used to do so many mixtapes. I used to love making mixtapes for friends and sometimes girlfriends. The tangible sharing of music was quite the thing. Yeah, but these days everything's on the cloud, so there's no real physical transaction. But yeah, that's what I miss the most about the 90s, I guess.
Generation Yes.